What happens when a Hollywood actor known for his intensity walks onto a daytime talk show expecting a soft conversation, only to be pushed one question too far? What happens when the studio lights burn a little too brightly, the audience leans a little too close, and Joy Behar decides to crack a joke at exactly the wrong moment? What happens is simple: Jake Gyllenhaal snaps. And on that day, the View's set went dead silent. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to Stage View and like and comment, because what you're about to witness is one of the most unexpectedly explosive daytime TV moments ever caught on camera. It began long before the cameras rolled. The energy backstage felt off. Jake's publicist paced in small circles, whispering last-minute reminders. Jake tugged once at the collar of his beige jacket, exhaling slowly. The kind of breath you take when you know you're stepping into a room where you'll have to smile, nod, and maneuver around landmines. He had a movie to promote, yes, but he was also walking into The View, where questions had a reputation for going sideways. A stagehand pushed open the door. "We're ready for you, Jake." He nodded, rolled his shoulders back, and walked toward the light. The applause hit him like a wave. The hosts, Whoopi at center, Joy beside her, Sarah and Alyssa on the wings, smiled warmly enough. But something in Joy's eyes glimmered with mischief. That familiar spark she got right before she decided to stir the pot. Jake caught it immediately. He wasn't paranoid. Joy Behar was simply Joy Behar. He sat, adjusted the mic clip to his jacket, and offered a polite, closed-lip smile. Whoopi opened with the usual pleasantries. "Jake Gyllenhaal, everybody. One of the most intense actors working today. And if you've seen the trailer for his new film, then you already know why our palms are sweating." Jake chuckled, polite easy. "I promise it's not that scary." But his guard stayed up. You could see it in the way his eyes scanned each host, preparing for each angle of attack. Sarah asked the first question, harmless. "You're known for throwing yourself into roles. What pulled you into this one? What made it necessary?" Jake leaned forward. The story felt grounded. It wasn't about spectacle. It was about the internal struggle. The director wanted rawness, and Joy cut in. "Is that what you call what happened on set? Rawness? Because I heard you had a moment. Or two." Jake blinked. Not hard. Not dramatically. Just once, slow enough that the audience picked up on it. A ripple of soft giggles moved across the room. Alyssa shot Joy a warning glance. Whoopi muttered, "Here we go," under her breath. Jake forced a smile. "I think you're referring to?" Joy folded her hands, feigning innocence. "Oh, a little thing someone said about you raising your voice at a crew member. Didn't sound very method, if you ask me." The audience made an "oh" sound, the kind that wasn't meant to be hostile, but definitely indicated they wanted drama. Jake's jaw tightened. That story was exaggerated. Joy shrugged. "Hollywood always says that." A strange tension pulsed through the studio. The kind that could either dissolve into laughter or ignite into something far more memorable. Jake's fingers tapped rhythmically against his knee, tiny, precise movements that signaled the beginning of agitation. He tried to maintain composure. "We work long days. Everyone gets frustrated sometimes." But nothing was hostile. Joy leaned in, widening her eyes like she'd just heard something scandalous. "So you didn't yell?" Sarah cut in sharply. "Joy, I didn't yell," Jake said more firmly now. "I spoke strongly. There's a difference." The way he said it, slow, deliberate, almost cold, made the audience quiet down. A few people in the back straightened in their seats. Joy smiled like a cat that finally spotted a loose string. "Well, if this is you speaking strongly, I'd hate to see yelling." Jake didn't laugh. Not even out of courtesy. Instead, something in his expression shifted. The slightest narrowing of the eyes, a subtle lift of the chin, like he was choosing whether to continue playing nice or to respond honestly. Whoopi, sensing the direction things were moving, tried to steer the interview back. "Let's talk about the craft." But Jake wasn't looking at Whoopi anymore. His gaze stayed locked on Joy. "Why?" he asked quietly. Joy blinked. "Why what? Why bring that up?" His voice was calm, but the undertone was unmistakable, like a pressure building beneath the floorboards. Joy tilted her head. "Because it's interesting. People want." "Do they?" Jake interrupted. "Or do you?" A murmur swept through the room. Joy blinked twice, something she did when she was about to fire back with sarcasm. "Oh, come on, Jake. It's daytime TV. We talk. We ask. We poke a little. That's the job. And you're a big boy. You can handle a question without snapping." The moment she said it, snapping, everything froze. Jake's jaw flexed. His eyes hardened. He sat back slowly, as if rebalancing himself, then leaned in again, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. The posture of someone who had decided to stop hiding his frustration. "I didn't snap," he said quietly but intensely. "You're trying to turn a basic on-set disagreement into something it wasn't. And you're doing it because you think it makes good TV." Joy laughed, overly casual. "Well, doesn't it?" A handful of people gasped. Whoopi rubbed her forehead. "Lord help us." Jake looked at Joy with a level of focus that felt unnervingly controlled. "You know, Joy, it's interesting. I came here ready to talk about the film, about the work, but you're more interested in creating drama that wasn't there." Joy held her ground. "If there's no drama, then why are you so worked up?" Jake exhaled sharply through his nose. Not a sigh, something closer to the kind of breath you release when you catch yourself before saying something you'll regret. "I'm not worked up," he said. "I'm responding." "Looks worked up to me," Joy said. The audience murmured again. Alyssa shifted uncomfortably. Sarah pressed her lips together. And that's when it happened. The moment the camera operators later admitted they felt in their bones before it even erupted. Jake leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "Look," he began, "I don't mind tough questions. But if you're going to throw something at me, at least get the facts straight." Joy raised her brows. "Are you saying I'm wrong?" "I'm saying you're reaching," Jake replied, "and trying to take a situation you know nothing about and turn it into a character flaw." Joy scoffed. "Oh, please." Jake snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, not with shouting or theatrics, but with something sharper. He slammed his palm lightly, but firmly, against the armrest, making the microphone pick up the impact. The audience jolted. Joy's eyes widened, finally registering that he wasn't playing along anymore. "Stop," Jake said. The word echoed, clear, controlled, razor-edged. Joy froze. "Stop twisting things. Stop acting like you know what happened. And stop trying to make a headline out of something that didn't exist." For a moment, no one spoke. The studio lights hummed. The cameras moved slightly, capturing the tension like it was oxygen in the air. Whoopi opened her mouth, then closed it. She knew better. This wasn't her moment to intervene. Joy swallowed. The first visible sign that she might have underestimated him. Jake continued, voice low and steady. "I showed up here to talk about my work. Not to be ridiculed. Not to be baited into some viral clip. You invited me here as a guest. So maybe, just maybe, try treating me like one." A silence settled so thick it felt like another person on stage. The audience couldn't believe what they were seeing. Joy Behar, never afraid, never shaken, looked genuinely stunned. Jake leaned back again, chest rising and falling with deliberate calm. His eyes flicked away from Joy, signaling he was done with the exchange, at least for the moment. Whoopi finally took the reins. "All right, well, we're going to take a break." The music cue started, awkward and unsteady. The camera zoomed out. Jake didn't move. Joy didn't look away from him. The tension clung to the air long after the applause sign lit up. The commercial break felt like an entire storm compressed into 60 seconds. Audience members whispered urgently among themselves, phones half raised as if they weren't sure whether they were allowed to record during the pause. The crew moved quickly but cautiously, like people tiptoeing around a sleeping bear. Joy Behar sat stiffly in her chair, lips pursed, arms folded, staring straight ahead. Jake Gyllenhaal didn't look at her at all. He stared into the middle distance, jaw clenched, foot tapping once every few seconds. An unmistakable sign that whatever had snapped inside him hadn't reset yet. Whoopi leaned over toward Jake first. "You all right?" she mouthed quietly. Jake nodded once. Not convincingly. She turned to Joy next. "You gotta ease up," she whispered, but Joy only shrugged. "He took it too seriously," she whispered back, louder than necessary. "He's an actor. They get dramatic." Jake heard that. Everyone heard that. A stage manager counted down from 10, and as the cameras blinked back to life, the superficial calmness returned. But the energy on set had completely changed. The audience sensed it. The host sensed it. And Jake sensed it most of all. When the music faded and the applause sign shut off, Whoopi forced an easy smile. "We're back with Jake Gyllenhaal," she said, her tone measured, the way someone speaks while walking carefully across cracked ice. "We were just talking about the film." "Were we?" Jake said suddenly. The air froze again. Joy blinked, surprised he had chosen to open with that. Whoopi gave him a cautionary look, begging silently for this segment not to derail so quickly. but the moment had already slipped beyond her control. Jake leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped again. The same posture he'd taken right before the tension boiled over minutes earlier. "We weren't talking about the film," he continued. "We were talking about whatever Joy felt like throwing at me." The audience gasped. Joy straightened. "Oh, here we go. Joy." Sarah tried to step in, but Jake continued undeterred. "I'm not trying to make this hostile," he said carefully, "but I am trying to be honest. I get that this is the view. I get that you mix humor and questions. But there's humor, and then there's undermining." Joy tilted her head. "I wasn't undermining anything. I asked a question. That's my job, Jake. And it's mine to correct something that isn't true," Jake replied. "But when I did, you kept pushing. Because you were defensive. Because you were wrong." The audience made another sharp, "Oh," louder now. Joy laughed, shaking her head. "This is unbelievable." Jake's voice lowered. "What's unbelievable is you taking a small rumor and acting like it defines me." Joy fired back immediately. "Then don't let it define you." Something dark flashed in his eyes. Hurt, frustration, exhaustion from years of public scrutiny. And suddenly the viewers at home, the audience in the studio, everyone watching Jake in that moment realized this wasn't about a single question. This was about all the interviews where he'd been reduced to headlines. All the moments where an actor known for nuance was flattened into a caricature. The pressure of carrying intensity as a brand. The weight of constantly being the serious one in a world demanding smiles. Jake inhaled deeply. "You know, Joy, every time I come on this show, you try to poke me like this." Joy threw up her hands. "Oh, don't start pretending I've singled you out. I tease everybody. But you push me," Jake said. "Harder than the others." "Maybe because you react like this," Joy shot back. "You're too sensitive." Jake stared at her, long, steady, quiet, until Joy visibly shifted in her seat. Whoopi finally cut in, hands raised. "All right, let's all take a breath." "No," Jake interrupted, turning back to Joy. "This isn't about being sensitive. It's about respect. And I don't feel respected here." The room went dead silent. For the first time since the confrontation began, Joy didn't respond with a joke. She blinked, actually taken aback. Sarah leaned toward him, speaking gently. "Jake, I don't think anyone here meant to disrespect you." Jake nodded, acknowledging her sincerity. "I know you didn't. Or Alyssa. Or Whoopi. But Joy," he looked at her again. "With you, it's always something." Joy scoffed. "Please. If I really wanted to go after you, I'd talk about the other thing." A collective gasp shot through the audience. Jake stiffened. "What other thing?" Whoopi muttered. "Joy, don't do this." Joy crossed her legs, folding her arms again. "People talk. Reporters talk. I hear things." Jake's eyes narrowed. "What did you hear?" Joy hesitated, just for a second, but Jake seized on that hesitation immediately. "What did you hear, Joy?" he repeated. Sarah tried desperately to intervene. "We don't need to." "No," Jake said, eyes locked on Joy. "If she's got something to say, she should just say it." Joy suddenly looked less confident than she had minutes earlier. But she wasn't someone who backed down easily, especially not after being challenged publicly. She leaned forward, meeting his stare. "I heard," she said slowly, "that you walked off set one day. Not just raised your voice. Not just spoke strongly. You walked off. Stormed off. Because someone criticized your performance." Jake froze. The audience collectively held their breath. Whoopi covered her eyes with both hands. Jake's voice was barely above a whisper. "That's not true." Joy shrugged. "That's what I heard." "From who?" Jake demanded. Joy opened her mouth, but didn't answer. Jake's reaction was immediate, visceral. A mix of disbelief and frustration burned across his face. "You don't even know. You're repeating gossip. On national television." Joy threw her hands up. "Everything's gossip until someone confirms it." Jake leaned in, eyes sharp. "So let me confirm it for you. It didn't happen. I didn't storm off set. I didn't walk out because someone criticized me. That's not who I am." Joy rolled her eyes. "Well, you're doing a great job convincing us otherwise right now." The audience gasped again, this one more uncomfortable. Jake's expression hardened. "You're unbelievable. And you're overreacting." Jake let out a short, humorless laugh. "Joy, if someone accused you of walking off this show because you couldn't handle a comment, would you just sit there and smile?" "I'd laugh," Joy said. "Because it's ridiculous." Jake leaned forward again. "Exactly. It's ridiculous. So why bring it up?" Joy didn't answer. She couldn't. She looked down at her cue cards, lips pressed tightly together. Whoopi saw the opening. Okay. Let's take it down a notch. Let's talk about the work, because that's why Jake is here. But Jake wasn't ready to let the moment vanish into forced conversation. Joy, he said quietly. I come here expecting jokes. I don't mind that. But what you did today, that wasn't a joke. That was character assassination dressed up as daytime TV banter. Joy finally looked up. Her expression wasn't mocking now. It wasn't amused, sarcastic, or dismissive. It was offended. Character assassination? She repeated. Jake nodded. Yes. Joy shook her head slowly. You think I'm trying to assassinate your character? Jake, please. You're not that important. The temperature in the studio dropped several degrees. Jake inhaled sharply through his nose, eyes widening with something between disbelief and anger. Wow! The audience murmured loudly. Sarah whispered, Oh my God! Alyssa stared at Joy, stunned. Whoopi leaned back in her chair, exasperated. Jake spoke again, quieter now, but far more dangerous. You know what, Joy? Maybe I'm not important to you, but I am to the people who actually care about my work. To the people in this audience. To the people who showed up today to hear about the film. Not your digs. Not your rumors. His voice trembled just slightly, not with weakness, but with intensity. And I think, he said, you owe me an apology. Joy recoiled. Excuse me? Jake didn't blink. You heard me. Joy scoffed, half laughing. I don't apologize when I've done nothing wrong. Jake leaned back, nodding slowly. Then say that. Say you think you've done nothing wrong. Joy hesitated. The audience watched, breath held. And for one terrifying moment, it looked like she might double down. But instead, she said nothing. Whoopi jumped in. We're taking another break. The music blasted louder than before. A signal. A cover. The camera zoomed out again as the screen faded to commercial. Jake looked away. Joy stared at her cue cards like they were suddenly written in another language. And the audience? They knew this wasn't over. The moment the cameras cut away again, the studio transformed into a pressure chamber. No one spoke at first. Not the hosts, not the crew, not even the audience. Everyone remained frozen in the aftershock of Jake's demand for an apology. A stage manager moved toward the table slowly, as if approaching a live electrical wire. We're back in 90 seconds, she whispered to Whoopi. Her eyes flicked to Jake, then to Joy. Do we need to adjust anything? Whoopi didn't answer. She just pressed her palms flat against the table, breathing deeply through her nose. This was her worst-case scenario. A celebrity who'd snapped, and a co-host who didn't know how to back down. Joy finally broke the silence. I'm not apologizing, she said quietly, voice edged with leftover adrenaline. Jake didn't even look at her. He stared straight ahead, as if the audience weren't there, as if he were trying to reset his own heartbeat. Sarah leaned forward. Joy, just think about the optics. The optics? Joy scoffed. He just accused me of character assassination on national TV. The optics already went out the window. Alyssa whispered. Joy, he wasn't wrong. Joy's eyes widened. Oh, so we're taking sides now. No one's taking sides, Whoopi said finally, rubbing her temples. We're trying to avoid this whole show going up in flames. Joy pointed at Jake. He's the one who got dramatic. Jake's jaw tightened, but he still didn't look at her. He simply said, dramatic? Or honest? Joy huffed loudly, frustrated. And in the audience, sitting in the third row, behind a woman clutching a tote bag, someone whispered into their phone, he's still mad. Oh my God, he's still mad. The tension had become so thick it felt like humidity. A stage manager started counting down again. 10, 9, 8. Sarah swallowed hard. Alyssa straightened her notes, even though she wasn't going to use them. Whoopi stared up at the ceiling as if asking the universe for strength. Joy took a deep breath. Jake didn't move. 3, 2, 1. The cameras went live again. Whoopi forced a smile, tight, thin, fragile. Welcome back to The View. We are here with Jake Gyllenhaal, talking about his new film. Jake suddenly spoke. Are we? The audience gasped loudly. Whoopi closed her eyes for just a moment, shoulders sagging. Jake, please. He leaned forward, finally turning toward Joy with chilling calm. Joy, do you really think I'm not important? Joy stiffened. They weren't supposed to be continuing this. They were supposed to be moving on, pretending nothing happened, letting the PR team handle the rest. But Jake wasn't done. Joy forced a thin smile. Jake, it was a joke. It wasn't a joke, he said. You meant it. Her smile faltered. The audience murmured, soft but sharp, like static building in the air. Jake continued, voice low and steady, every word clear enough for the microphones to capture with icy precision. You said I'm not that important. But if I weren't, you wouldn't bring up rumors just to get a reaction. You wouldn't poke me. You wouldn't go after me every time I come here. Joy opened her mouth, but Jake wasn't finished. And you definitely wouldn't try to humiliate me in front of millions of people. Joy blinked rapidly, taken off guard. Whoopi put up both hands. Okay. This isn't helping anybody. I'm not trying to help anyone, Jake said, still calm. I'm trying to tell the truth. Joy's eyes flashed. Well, here's the truth. Actors like you take themselves too seriously. Jake held her gaze, and something inside him broke free. Not rage, not theatrics, but something far quieter and far more dangerous. Actors like me, he said slowly, have spent years being treated like walking clickbait. You sit here with your stack of rumors and your smirks and your jokes, and you think they don't land. But they do. They stick. And then I spend weeks trying to convince people that I'm not the headline you tried to create. Joy bristled. I don't create headlines. I comment on them. You amplify them, Jake countered. And you don't care who it affects. Joy straightened. Well, maybe you should lighten up. Jake leaned in, his voice so quiet the entire room leaned in with him. Maybe you should grow up. A collective gasp erupted from the audience. Joy's face flushed, shock, anger, disbelief swirling into something volatile. Excuse me, she snapped. Jake didn't back down. You heard me. Joy leaned toward him now, closing the distance between them. I've been doing this job for 26 years. I've interviewed presidents. I've dealt with actors twice your size and 10 times your ego. And never has someone come on this show and tried to lecture me about how I do my job. Jake stared at her with a cold steadiness. Maybe they should have. Everything stopped. Sarah dropped her pen. Alyssa's mouth fell open. Audience members exchanged horrified looks. Joy's lips trembled, not with fear, but with fury. What gives you the right to judge me? Jake inhaled, his voice breaking out with a quiet but fierce emotion. Because you judged me first. Joy scoffed, shaking her head aggressively. You're unbelievable. And you're reckless, Jake shot back. Whoopi slammed her hand on the table, a sharp crack that echoed through the studio. Enough! Her voice cut through the room like a blade. Joy fell silent. Jake leaned back. The audience froze. We are not doing this, Whoopi said firmly. This is a talk show, not a boxing ring. We talk about issues, not each other. Joy muttered. He started it. Jake replied immediately. You provoked it. Both of you stop, Whoopi snapped. Joy recoiled, eyes wide. Jake exhaled, jaw tight. Whoopi continued. This show is supposed to be a conversation. A discussion. Not a personal attack session. Jake, Joy, you both said things. You both crossed lines. And now we're going to take a breath and move on. Jake didn't react. Joy's jaw clenched. A tense silence followed, thick, awkward, trembling at the edges. Whoopi looked at Jake. Do you want to talk about the film? Jake hesitated. Not because he didn't want to talk about the film, he did, but because the moment had shifted into something stranger, deeper. The audience wasn't watching for the movie anymore. They were watching the emotional unraveling of two people trapped in a pressure cooker of live television. Joy sensed the hesitation and jumped on it. See, he doesn't even want to talk about the film. Jake turned his head slowly toward her. Joy, he said, you have no idea what I want. Joy laughed bitterly. Well, you clearly don't want professionalism. Jake cut her off. Professionalism. He laughed once, humorless. You're the one who brought up rumors. You're the one who questioned my character. You're the one who escalated this. Joy snapped back. You escalated this by acting like a child. Jake leaned forward, voice trembling with intensity. And you acted like a bully. The audience gasped so loudly it drowned out the microphones. Joy froze, eyes wide, mouth half open. Alyssa whispered, Oh my God. Sarah put a hand over her mouth. Jake continued, but his voice softened, softer than anyone expected. That's what it feels like, Joy. Every time I come here. Like you enjoy poking me because you think I won't push back. Like I'm an easy target. Joy stared at him, her breath catching. And maybe, Jake said, for the first time, I decided not to take it. Joy's face changed then, not anger, not mockery, but something closer to realization. Maybe even guilt. Just a flicker. But it was there. Whoopi seized the moment. We're cutting to break, she said abruptly. The music blasted. The audience applauded, but the claps were uneven, confused, shaken. As the camera pulled away, Joy looked down at the table, breathing hard. Jake rubbed his face with both hands, exhausted. And in the silence between the applause and the commercial transition, everyone in that studio felt the same thing. The break before the final segment felt different from the ones before it. Not just tense, heavy. Like the air itself had thickened. The audience sat stiffly, hands clasped, eyes glancing between Jake and Joy as if they were watching two tectonic plates settle before another violent shift. Joy didn't speak. Not a word. Her jaw worked, her eyes focused on the table, her fingers tapping rapidly against her mug, restless, defensive, unsettled. She wasn't used to silence. She wasn't used to not having control. Jake remained still, hands folded in front of him, shoulders rising and falling with deep, steady breaths. But beneath that quiet was an unmistakable emotional exhaustion, like someone replaying 1,000 past interviews in his head, remembering every slight he let slide. Whoopi looked between them, then at the stage manager. "Cut the politics segment," she said curtly. "Cut everything after this. We'll finish with him, then end the show early." The stage manager nodded immediately. No arguments. Everyone on staff knew. This moment would be the story of the day, maybe the week, maybe longer. The countdown began again. 10, 9, 8. Sarah whispered to Alyssa, "Do we step in? Or stay out of it?" Alyssa whispered back, "If we step in, we make it worse." Whoopi exhaled, bracing herself. 3, 2, 1. The show went live, and the silence was the loudest thing in the room. No music, no warm applause, just breathless stillness. Whoopi cleared her throat. "We're back," she said gently. "And before we finish, I think it's important we acknowledge what happened." Joy stiffened. Jake looked up, eyes tired. Whoopi turned to Joy first. "Joy." Joy blinked. Once. Twice. Her lips pressed into a line. She finally spoke, voice low, guarded. "I didn't mean to upset you." Jake's gaze sharpened, not hostile, not aggressive, but deeply attentive. Joy continued. "I make jokes. Sometimes they land, sometimes they don't." She swallowed. Today they didn't. The audience held its breath. It wasn't an apology, not fully. But it wasn't nothing either. Jake nodded slowly. He didn't look triumphant or vindicated. He looked human. And tired. And maybe a little wounded. "I appreciate that," he said softly. Joy blinked again, looking downward. Whoopi took over. "Jake, is there anything you want to say before we wrap?" Jake exhaled deeply. "Yeah," he said. "Actually, there is." The audience leaned in. Jake looked out toward them, eyes steady but reflective. "I know what this show is. I know what interviews are. I know humor is part of it. I get that." He paused. "But what people don't see is how comments, even small ones, stick. How one rumor turns into a story. How one moment becomes the thing people talk about instead of the work." A few people in the audience nodded. And actors were supposed to smile. Laugh. Shrug it off. Pretend it doesn't get to us. He shook his head. "Sometimes it does." Joy shifted, watching him closely. Jake continued, voice thickening just a bit. "I care about my craft. I care about the people I work with. And when someone throws something out there that paints me as difficult or volatile, it hurts. It hurts the people around me. It hurts how the industry sees me." He exhaled. "And yeah, sometimes it hits a nerve." Joy's eyes softened. Maybe the first genuine softness she'd shown all day. Jake turned to her. "I don't think you're malicious, Joy. I don't think you're trying to hurt anyone. But today it went too far. And I pushed back." Joy didn't look away. "I didn't expect you to," she said quietly. Jake nodded. "I know." A long, vulnerable silence hung in the air. Then Joy slowly, almost reluctantly, spoke again. "Look, Jake, I may joke around, but I don't want you walking out of here thinking I don't respect you." Jake's brows lifted slightly. Joy took a breath. "I don't apologize often." A few audience members chuckled nervously. "But I'm sorry if I made you feel disrespected." It hung there, real, unpolished, imperfect, but genuine enough. Jake nodded once, a small but sincere gesture. "Thank you." The audience burst into relieved applause. Sarah smiled softly. Alyssa exhaled for what seemed like the first time in minutes. Whoopi gave each of them a look, equal parts exhausted and grateful. "All right," she said, half laughing, half sighing. "Can we talk about the film now? Just for 1 minute? Before my blood pressure drops any further?" Jake cracked a small, genuine smile, the first natural one he had shown since the interview began. "Yeah," he said. "Let's do that." And for exactly 60 seconds, they did. But even as he spoke about the film, its themes, its emotional arc, the intensity of the performance, you could feel the shift. The audience wasn't listening to the words. They were watching him, watching how human he looked, watching how raw and unfiltered the moment had been, and watching Joy, who nodded with quiet acknowledgement, not daring another jab. When the minute was over, Whoopi took a breath and signed off. "We want to thank Jake Gyllenhaal for joining us today. And we'll see you all tomorrow." The applause swelled, emotional, relieved, cathartic. The cameras faded to black. But the story didn't end. Because the moment the show went off air, the studio erupted. Audience members pulled out their phones, tweeting, posting, whispering, speculating. Backstage producers rushed to figure out how much of the incident had aired and how much they needed to prepare statements for. Clips hit social media within seconds. Jake Gyllenhaal confronts Joy Behar on live TV. The View goes off the rails again. Most uncomfortable interview in years. Millions of views before the hour was over. Thousands of comments debating who was right, who crossed the line, who should have handled it better. Memes, edits, reaction videos. And by the evening, every entertainment outlet from Variety to TikTok gossip accounts was running with the headline: Jake Gyllenhaal snaps on The View. But viewers who watched it live knew the truth. He didn't snap. He finally stood up. And Joy, who had spent decades mastering the art of the jab, finally realized she could jab one person too many. But the most surprising part? By the next morning, a new clip went viral. A fan-recorded backstage moment. Joy and Jake talking quietly. Joy touching his arm. Jake smiling small but sincere. Two people who had collided hard and then found a strange, unexpected respect in the wreckage. Because sometimes the most explosive TV moments aren't the ones where people fall apart. They're the ones where they put something back together. And now I want to hear from you. Do you think Jake was right to call Joy out? Or do you think Joy was just doing her job? Tell me in the comments below. Your opinion matters. And if you love these deep dive cinematic breakdowns of the most dramatic Hollywood and TV moments, make sure you subscribe to Stage View for more explosive stories, more tension-filled encounters, and more moments that pull back the curtain on live television drama. Until next time, stay tuned.